Hello, everybody. I'm Parsha Becky, and we are back for another week of Parsha. As I'm sure you recall, last week we finished the second book of Chumash, the book of Shemot, which means that this week we are beginning the third book of Chumash, the book of Vayikra. And since we're starting a new book of Chumash, the first Parsha in the book has the same name as the book. So this week's Parsha is also called Vayikra. Vayikra means he called. And the parsha is called Vayikra because at the start of, oh, somebody's calling. Hello? Hello, who is it? It's Hashem calling. Hashem, who should I pass the phone to? Who are you calling for? Hashem is calling for Moshe. I will pass the phone to Moshe right away, God. Okay. I'm being silly. Hashem is not really calling Moshe up on the phone. But at the start of the parsha, Hashem calls to Moshe, Vayikra, and Hashem says, hey, Moshe, you know how we've spent the last several parshas learning about and then building the Mishkan, our traveling temple to use in the desert to worship Hashem? Well, now I'm going to tell people how to actually use it. So in this parsha, Moshe is supposed to tell the Jewish people about these 5 types of korbanot, 5 types of sacrifices of offerings that we can give to Hashem in the Mishkan. The first type is called the olah. The word olah is connected to the word olah or la'alot, which means to go up, because the olah, as an offering, it all goes up in smoke. An olah could be a male cow or sheep or goat, and the person who brings it leans their hand on it, and the entire animal is set on fire. Obviously, it's slaughtered first, and then it's burned, and the entire thing goes up in smoke. Or it could be a bird, it could be a dove or a pigeon. The whole thing goes up in smoke. Nobody gets to use any of it. You give it all to God. The second type of offering, if you're a vegetarian, get excited because the mincha is a 100% vegetarian offering. It's entirely vegetarian. It is generally made out of flour. It's made out of wheat. There are about 5 types of mincha. There could be just plain raw flour mixed with oil and spice, or you could bake your flour into matzah and put oil on it, or you could bake it into wafers and add oil. You could fry it into a pancake and add oil, or you could fry it into a donut and add oil. And some of the mincha is burned, and some of it the kohanim will get to eat. You notice that when I listed those 5 ways to prepare it, raw, matzah, wafers, pancake, or donut, something's missing. What about bread? Well, just like on the holiday of Pesach, which is coming up, we are not allowed any chametz in our houses, anything leavened, any bread that rises or that makes bread rise. So too, we are not allowed to put any chametz, any leaven or leavened food or leavening agent on the mizbeach. Nothing leavened can be given to Hashem on the mizbeach. So no bread allowed. You can make it in all those other ways. 2 other rules about your mincha. One thing you can never, ever, ever, ever put on it, no honey allowed. And one thing you always, always, always have to put on it, you always have to add salt to your mincha. So it's more of a salty flavor than a sweet flavor. And I said 5, but there's really one more type of mincha. And that 6th type is called bikurim, the first fruits, which we bring to the temple or to the Mishkan on Shavuot. Our first fruits, that is also considered a mincha. It's also a vegetarian offering. And in fact, one way to bring your bikurim is to take your wheat, instead of grinding your wheat into flour, take your wheat berries and roast them and pour on some oil and spice and give that to Hashem for your bikurim. Our third type of offering is the shlamim. Shlamim, you can hear in that word like shalom, which means peace, because a shlamim is an offering you give when you're feeling at peace, you're feeling happy. Unlike the other offerings, unlike the other korbanot, a shlamim is not something that you're required to give on an occasion. A shlamim you choose to give when you feel like it. When you feel so happy and at peace, you're like, wow, I love my life. I want to give a present to Hashem to say thanks. Hey, thanks God for giving me such a great life, for giving me all these blessings in my life. I will give Hashem a shlamim to say thank you. So for the shlamim, there's a lot of options because it's your choice. You choose to give it. You can choose whether it's a cow or a bird or a sheep or a goat. It could be a male animal, a female animal, whatever makes you feel happy and at peace. You bring your shlamim, you lean your hands on it, and then the animal's slaughtered. Some of the meat is burned. Some the kohanim get to eat, and some you get to eat. So it's like everyone shares, everyone gets a part. So there, it's a nice big shlamim party. But when you get to eat from the shlamim, 2 things you can't eat. You can't eat the blood. We can never eat animals' blood. Yuck, gross. And you also can't eat the fat of your shlomim. When you're eating like a regular animal that you cooked for yourself, you can eat the fat if you want to. When it's a shlomim offering, when you're giving it to Hashem, the fat gets burned. Only Hashem gets the fat. You don't get to eat it. Uh, the fourth type of offering is called the chatat. And you can hear in the word chatat, you can hear chet, which is a sin. It's like when you go against a mitzvah, when you go against a commandment. And a chatat is the offering you bring if you accidentally go against a mitzvah from the Torah. Accidentally is important. If you do it on purpose, you have to face the consequences for your actions. If you do it accidentally, you can make up for it by bringing a chatat. There are four types of chatat. Number one, let's say the Kohen Gadol messes up by accident, does something against the instructions for doing a sacrifice. When the Kohen Gadol is like offering somebody else's gift to Hashem in the Mishkan, big deal. So the Kohen Gadol will bring a male cow, lean his hands on it. He'll sprinkle some of the blood on the Mizbeach. Some of it will get burned. Offer that to Hashem. Option number two is, let's say the entire Jewish people accidentally make the same mistake all together. We all do the same wrong thing all together. We don't need every single person to bring an offering. There'll be like so many animals. So we bring one male cow on behalf of the entire Jewish people. The leaders of the people lean their hands on the animal to represent everybody, and the Kohanim give it to Hashem. Option number three is, what if the leader does something wrong? The leader accidentally breaks a mitzvah, and then they realize like, oh my gosh, I did this wrong thing, and like I'm the leader, everybody looks up to me, everybody thinks I'm doing the right thing. So the leader will bring a male goat as the chatat, lean his hands on it, and then it will get offered up to Hashem. And the fourth type is like Joe Schmo, it's like me or you, some random person. We're not the leader, we're not the Kohen, we're not all the people, just one person on our own. We accidentally, by mistake, did something that was against a mitzvah. We realize it. We bring a female goat or sheep, lean our hands on it, and the Kohanim will give it to Hashem in the proper way. The fifth type of korban, the fifth type of offering that we learn about in our parsha is called the asham. The cool word, I love this. The word asham sounds a lot like an English word, which means the same thing. It's just like it sounds like ashamed. Asham basically means the same thing as ashamed. When you are, it's a guilt offering. You feel guilty about something you did wrong. Now, asham sounds very similar to a chatat. There's a little bit of a difference because a chatat is when you went against an actual mitzvah by accident. An asham is something, it's not exactly breaking a mitzvah, but it's something that's still not the right thing that you did by mistake. The examples the Torah gives are, let's say you witnessed a crime and you don't give testimony in court when you should have to help the bad person be apprehended. You should have given witness. You technically didn't. You didn't do the crime yourself, but you didn't give your testimony. You need to bring an asham. Or let's say you touched something that's impure, that makes anyone who touches it unable to go into the Mishkan until they get washed off. But you forgot that you touched it, and you went into the Mishkan without getting washed off, and then you remember, you're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have come in here. We don't come into the Mishkan when we've touched something impure, because the Mishkan is a very special holy place that we keep clean for Hashem. If you accidentally did that, you bring an asham. And the third example is, let's say you make a promise and then you forget your promise and you break the promise, and then you remember, you're like, oh, I promised I would not do that, and I did it because I forgot. Now, technically, you didn't break a mitzvah, but you broke your promise. You have to bring an asham. So for these three cases, you bring a female sheep or goat for your asham. And Torah's like, wait, but what if, sheep and goats are expensive? What if you can't afford your sheep and goat? Like, listen, you did something wrong, but it was a mistake. It was an accident. You didn't mean to. You feel bad. You want to make it right. You can't afford your sheep or goat. No problem, the Torah says. You'll bring two birds. You'll bring two pigeons or two doves. And you can do that instead. But wait, what if, listen, birds are cheaper than sheep or goats. But like, what if you still can't afford those two birds? And okay, you did something wrong, but it was an accident. It was a mistake. You didn't mean to. You feel bad. You want to make it right. You can't afford the birds. No problem, the Torah says. You'll just bring some plain raw flour. You don't put oil. You don't put anything. Just your plain raw flour. That is enough if you can't afford more. There's one other type of asham. If you accidentally take something that belongs to the Mishkan, you didn't realize until it's too late, you've used it. Now, we're not allowed to use stuff that belongs to the Mishkan for ourselves, because that's stealing from God. Don't steal from God. So you've accidentally stolen from God. Then you found out what you used belonged to the Mishkan. You're like, oh my God, I stole from God. You have to give a male sheep as an asham. Plus, you have to pay back the value of what you took. Plus, you have to pay back an extra 1/5 of the value. If you took something worth $5, you pay back 6. And that way you're making up for what you did. You're paying Hashem back. You're apologizing. That is the end of this week's Parsha of Vayikra. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. Look forward to learning more Torah together next week.